All right, sounds
Yep.
good. Make sure we start on time and we have plenty of time for Q&A and conversation because I actually show up to this every year. It's one of my very favorite conferences to present at because I know we have a lot of amazing high school students from around the state and hopefully their teachers. And you guys are kind of the future. You're the ones that I have dedicated the last 20 years of my life to. So it's an absolute privilege to be here with you all today. My name is Dr. Anna Stumpf, and I have taught high school classes in the past for about 8 years. I taught business and marketing classes, computer applications at the high school level. I taught at the collegiate level, a lot of marketing classes, sports marketing, social media, those types of things. Moved to Ball State and taught in the Center for Information Communication Sciences, which is really where I started to get more focused on tech and how the tech industry in the state of Indiana really needs top talent. And then just recently, as you can see from the PowerPoint slide, I was with an organization called TechPoint here in Indiana. It's a nonprofit. They partner a lot with Next Tech to make sure that we are showing up, talking to you all, helping you understand kind of the trends and all of the best things that are going on to help you figure out pathways and best decisions to make and opportunities in this state for your career, which is hopefully in the tech or tech-enabled field. I firmly believe that pretty soon everything is going to be a tech job, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But I would love to hear your questions. Please keep just type them in the Q&A as they come up. I'm happy to incorporate those as I'm presenting because I'm really here for you all. I want to make sure you understand kind of like what I know and what I'm talking about and how it impacts you as you go on and make decisions. One of the very first things I want to just like help level set is where I thought at my age today, where I thought we would be in the world. And I don't know if any of you have heard of the Jetsons, but I had to look on Wikipedia this morning because I was like, when did the Jetsons come out? Like I was born 51 years ago. So like how long? And the Jetsons are actually 10 years older than me. They're 60 years old, which if you just kind of think for a minute, like how fun this cartoon was. This is back when we only had a couple of channels on the TV. And the Jetsons originally aired in prime time, which is the evening. So this was like a family animated comedy show. And it was about a family who lived in space. And they had this like robot maid. They had a robot dog. If you can see down in the bottom right, the picture of George Jetson, he's the dad. He had a job, of course, because it was the 60s. The mom didn't, but the dad did. And he literally like worked from home. If you can imagine 60 years ago, that's what somebody that created this comedy series thought like work from home would look like. And it's not really all that different, right? Like we're all sitting here today on a screen. But his boss is mad at him about something because George got in a lot of trouble all the time. But they like flew in space cars and they would like just their house was run by robots. And I sat there growing up watching this thinking by the time I'm like 30, because that seemed so old, this will be our life. Like we will have so much technology. I'll have a space dog and hopefully a space maid. And all of those things. I just assumed that's where we would be. Well, we're not, obviously, because we don't have autonomous vehicles. We don't have a lot of the things that we know are coming. I had a guest speaker last year in one of my classes that I teach, and he works for Meta. And he was working on virtual reality software for Facebook that is 10 years from market. And I've heard those things, right? Like research and development and companies around the world are working for things that you and I will not have in our like everyday lives for well over a decade. So for some of you, you'll be close to that 30 years old that I felt like was so ancient before some of this technology that companies are working on today will come to fruition. Maybe. One of the things I want to talk about a little bit is why I think your lives will be different. And here is a slide that talks about, like, in the state of Indiana, tech talent is the greatest concern. So the ability to hire the needed talent to solve problems that are facing just like companies and our economy and our future in Indiana, to make it an innovative and profitable place for everybody that lives here is really, truly like a top concern. And I will say that's across every industry. And here's why. This is from the 2020 census. And the census is obviously when we go around and officially do a count of everyone in the country. And it was tough during 2020 because of the pandemic, but we have known for quite some time that we are facing a population decline. So the thing I really want for you all to understand when we talk to you about your futures is that the population, as you sit here today and listen to me talk, is the highest it will likely be in your entire life. We are in a population decline that is not letting up. So as you see it start to dip, it really truly is going to be in a decline. So that's less people. So when you look at like the state of Indiana wanting to double the national workforce working in technology. So that's one thing that we're working on at TechPoint through this Mission 41K is we want to take the national trend of people getting tech jobs across the United States. And we want to double that rate in Indiana because we want to make sure that we are constantly in the top 10 or top 5 of places that people can work and have good, well-paying, secure jobs in tech. We want to make sure that our companies have access to people that can help them keep their company thriving and employ more people in Indiana. We want to make sure, and we know that's one of the best things we can do for the state of Indiana. So when we look at the fact that we will have less people, my prediction, everyone's prediction, and really truly just like basic business would tell you we are going to have to use more technology, more automation at a faster rate starting now than we have in the past. And that's a very big decision. Like, how do we start to replace humans in some of these jobs and use more technology? And when we replace humans, we're not doing away with their jobs. I hear that a lot, like I ran into somebody like at the self-checkout at the grocery store a couple years ago, and he refused to use the self-checkout. He said, I'm not going to let, these robots replace people. Like, I'm not in favor of that. And I'm thinking, well, if you think about it that way, yeah, that's really bad. But if you think about it in terms of like, for the person that doesn't have to stand there and be a cashier, they can go get a different job. We can retrain them, reskill them, give them things that they can go do other jobs. And that's what we have to think about. I think the last statistic I heard is within the next 5 years. So you guys think about where you're going to be in the next 5 years. 75% of the workforce will need some level of reskilling because of how the job market and how jobs that are available are going to evolve. So less frontline jobs, less maybe, manufacturing or distribution center or different, even accounting, things that we can automate. We definitely will want to do that. So when we take a look at like, what does this mean? This is the population growth by age range. So obviously, if you've studied the baby boomers, we know we call those the baby boomers because we had this huge boom in the population after the war. So those folks are really aging out of the workforce. They're in that 65 to 74 year area. Now, some of them are still working. A lot of them took advantage of a really strong economy over the last 3 or 4 years and retired around the pandemic, especially because that was a really hard time to be in the over 60 in corporate America, because there was a lot of flexibility that had to happen with work from home, and all of that was very hard on them. Some of them have come back into the workforce, which is kind of cool. Seeing people being able to come back and still provide value and, stay young probably by coming to work. The next biggest group is that 25 to 34 range. So the people in the group that are just ahead of you all. And what you notice with your age range, the 15 to 24, we are seeing a decline in your age range. So that's where that population dip is happening. So that's less people going to college, less people getting trained, less people entering the workforce. There's just less people. So when we take a look at less people, we have to think like, how do we start to automate? And what does that look like? So this is a really interesting story. I wanted to share this with you today because it's like one of my favorite stories. I was teaching high school in 2005, and I had a student who did an internship as part of her senior year, and she worked at the hospital in Indianapolis, Community Health. And she came back and she was telling me that the surgeon at the hospital back in 2005 was using this really cool robot to do surgery. It's called the Da Vinci arm. So this is the Da Vinci surgery. It was found, I looked it up. It was founded in 1995. And what you see, and they're still using them today. If you go to their website, which I provided for you there, it's there. You can see kind of how it works, how they describe it, what they're using. But they have been using that all of this time to do what's really like a more like hygienic, a lot safer. And the robot arm, with the use of the two surgeons, like using the joysticks and manipulating the arm, you can see that's less people around the patient. So like less risk for infection. And then also just a finer manipulation of like the instruments and those types of things. So they were using this back then. She was telling me all about it. She showed me some pictures. And I got to tell you, in 2005, like this was like the most amazing revolutionary thing I've ever seen in my life. It was like so cool to think that we had people doing that. And you think about these gentlemen that are sitting at these like consoles were people who'd gone to school to become surgeons. I don't think in any way, shape, or form did you think they were going to be like operating what's, you know, for like you and I, almost a video game, which weren't really that big and popular in the 90s. But it was really one of those things where they needed new skills. So over the summer, I ran into this organization that was doing a fundraise, like a venture capital fundraise for this startup. And they're looking for like millions of dollars. And they were sharing all of this information about how they were going to revolutionize the industry of restaurants and fast food and and it was going to change society. And they had this really great video on their website about why you should give them money to help them raise venture capital to use this amazing technology to just transform society. So I wanted to show you really quick what the, let me stop sharing and go to a different tab. I want to show you like what the technology is that they're using, because it was just very interesting to me. And I think that you might recognize it a little bit. So I'll show you this quick video.
We all grew up on the joys of fast food. The good food made fast and affordable are all part of what made these American institutions. But times are changing.
The pandemic has flipped the restaurant industry upside down.
And we're looking for our savior.
And the number of workers is down by 35%.
To take us back to the glory days of fast.
I wouldn't say back or even glory days.
Well, what would you say?
It's about the future of fast food. Hi, I'm Mike Bell, CEO of Miso Robotics, and we're using robotics and AI to help usher in the future of fast foods. Commercial kitchens, when you look at these kitchens across the United States, you see operations based on manual tasks and outdated technology. So that means people are performing lots of repetitive and robotic tasks.
Ha, was that pun intended?
Yes, it was.
So robots, I get it, but how are you recreating that magic of what fast food was?
Pretty simple. We build robots to do robotic work and let people do people work. The fryer is one of the toughest positions to build. You got splattering oil. 20, 30 degrees hotter standing behind that fryer than in the rest of the kitchen. What we ended up developing in Flippy was really a collaboration between kitchen workers and our engineering product teams. Workers who used to be working the grill, working in the kitchen, are now working the kitchen, but getting trained in robotics technology at the same time. And that's a skill that they can take with them for the rest of their lives.
Wow, that sounds impressive.
I'm also impressed by how cool it is.
All right. So they are so impressed with that technology, right? Like it's going to revolutionize fast food. It's going to change the way we do things. We're going to let, people do people jobs, and we're going to let automation and robots do those like robotic type skills. So I absolutely positively just love how we are starting to see some of that former technology kind of resurface and reuse for today's big problems. And I guess getting your fries on time is a big problem in society. I hear that a lot, that nobody wants to work today. I hear that. I heard it at a birthday party a few weeks ago. I had some older gentleman, standing next to me, and he was asking me, what do you do? And I said, I'm a college professor and I do training and different things. And he said, oh, good. Like, we got to fix this problem, in our country. Nobody wants to work. And I'm like, really? You think that? Like, because if you look at the national labor trends, currently we have 1.9 jobs available for every human in the workforce. That's kind of crazy in this country, but they're not jobs that we could easily get people into. They are not jobs that are like set up for everyone. And unfortunately, through the pandemic and other things, people started to realize, maybe I don't want to work in the frontline jobs. Maybe I don't want to be in hospitality. A lot of these folks found other roles. And then the opportunity to get reskilled, boot camps, training, not having to necessarily go to college to get an education, to get these different jobs and things, has definitely been on the rise. So one of the things that we look at TechPoint is we think about the job growth rate. And here it shows that the job growth in Indiana for tech work is growing at 16%. And it's 60% faster than all other industries. So when you look at all these other industries, so think about, like, they're freaking out about this like French fry robotic arm because they need to replace these people to put them in other jobs. Tech jobs, right? Anything that is super tech related and technology based is growing 60% faster. And it's 1 in 10 jobs in this state currently. And it's only going to grow so fast. So as you sit here in high school and you think how quickly this growth is going to happen and how we can keep up with it and how we can help you be ready for that. So when we talk about like what is a tech job, these are tech occupations, tech industries. There are people that are self-employed. And then that area in the middle is like working for tech, but maybe in manufacturing or tech in healthcare or tech in other industries that are not like tech specific. So tech or tech related is kind of what we call those. This slide's got a lot of stuff going on, but kind of what I wanted to talk about with you on this slide particularly is if you are, having heard, if you pay attention to the news or you look at what's going on in the business world at all, one of the things that we talk about is the Great Resignation over the last 2 or 3 years. And that is, we have had more people quit their jobs. Most of them are moving on to other jobs. And just, it's a lot of movement going on in the workforce, and it is not anything like we have ever experienced before. So it really disrupted life as we know it, but business as we know it, and how people were valuing jobs. And now you see a lot of it as fallout, maybe from COVID, where you may have had a company before that didn't even like entertain the idea of like remote work or work from home or a hybrid where you kind of like spend a couple days working from home and you work in the office other days. That used to not even really be, it was very rare, right? But coming out of COVID, you see more and more employees go and look, like, I don't need to commute an hour both ways every day. I don't need all of that time in the office. I'm more productive at home. I have a better work-life balance. It's healthier. I'm still getting work done. And now we're starting to see different trends. So some people that have been quitting their jobs are looking for those companies that will offer that flexibility. It's allowed people to move across the country. Like, it's super expensive to live in California, especially in Silicon Valley, where technology kind of started and has, kind of been the hub of most big tech companies. And now people can move and live in Indiana, where it's a lot cheaper, and maybe they're closer to like family, and they have a better school system and, better opportunities and things for their family. You never know like what people are motivated by, but I think that this slide is important because it shows like the disruption that is happening in the labor market is going to continue. And we had like an industrial revolution. We've got the skills shortage, which is like $8.5 trillion when we think about what the skills shortage is going to mean to the future. So again, like, this is really where it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you all about this today, is because these types of issues, these skill shortages, and the automation and the increase in technology are literally happening about the time you all are entering into the workforce. Even if you go right after high school into like adult apprenticeships, or you find boot camps or certifications, if you decide to go to Ivy Tech for the first 2 years and get your first 2 years of college out of the way, so much less expensive than, maybe a full 4-year experience. Or if a full 4-year experience is what you want and you're able to get that. And one of the amazing, brilliant, colleges here that we have in Indiana, even if you're on like a 2 to 4 year path, or maybe just right after high school, change is on us. Like, change is here. It doesn't matter how much longer it is until you enter the workforce. Like, it is already happening. And thinking about the people coming up behind you, I mean, like, you all are already in high school. But this was a statistic that I saw recently. And I will tell you, this is like one of the things as an educator used to just blow my mind. And part of it is because, again, I thought I was going to be Mrs. Jetson by now. But the statistic is that 65% of students in elementary school today, right? Elementary kids today will have jobs that do not exist right now. Which goes to say, like, maybe not your first or second job, but the future of your career are jobs that are not in existence yet. And I used to worry about that as a high school and college professor. I'd think to myself, like, how am I supposed to help these students navigate a world where I can't imagine it. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like for you, what life will look like, what your career will look like. And how do I help prepare you for jobs that don't exist yet? Like, that used to absolutely positively weigh on me, because I think to myself, like, that is a lot of pressure. And the problem is the people who designed your K through 12, your, education experience, college, all the people in the front of the room, me, we're all so much older than you. We are slower to change, slower to adapt, slower to understand things, but yet we're the ones who are telling you what you should do with your life. Like, it's really, truly kind of a backward system as fast as society changes. So I tell you all that to tell you that I recognize that, and that I urge you to set up Google Alerts, become students of tech trends, understand what's happening in the industries you want to work in. If you want to work in cybersecurity, fully understanding the credentials needed. And is it worth taking 2 to 4 years to get some sort of an education while you continue to mature and grow? Because I saw Joy put in the chat, like, college is super expensive. That's why people don't go. Agreed. However, if you look at the trends and what is needed for your industry, for long-term investment, is it better while you're young and you can recover from that financial investment? Is it better to go to college? Is it better to at least go for 2 years, right? You could go get an associate's degree, get a job with a company, and maybe the company would help pay for the next 2 years, right? Like, think about how you can make that giant expensive price tag on college easier for yourself, but also invest long-term in your future. There is a statistic, I'll get to it in a little bit, but I wanted to share with you that the majority of people in the state of Indiana are not walking around with a college education. for people who graduate high school in Indiana and then go to a 4-year college, 24% of those students will graduate in 4 years. That's crazy to think about, right? So if you graduate high school in May, you start college in August, only 24% of those students will successfully graduate within the like traditional 4 years. 42% go on to graduate at some point. So there's definitely a disconnect in being successful. There's a disconnect in like what you're studying. And that to me, that 24% is proof that a 4-year college track is not what everybody needs. We cannot make it one size fits all. We cannot put everybody down that same path. So I really want to stress that to you, that what fits for you and what you're interested in today is what you have to focus on, because trying to make a long-term choice on what is going to be good for you in the future is a very risky thing to think about. So I just think it's very interesting that you guys need to like really think about the fact that people are trying to give you advice because they care about you. They know things about the world today. Like I used to tell my students, I'm old and I know things. Like it makes me a good resource. But I don't know much about the world you're getting ready to live in. None of us do, because it is just truly the unknown. All right, this slide has a ton of words on it, and for that I apologize. But I found this article that talks about how do we prepare students for jobs that don't exist. And since you all are those people, I wanted to share with you 4 quick quotes. The first off being, new categories of jobs will emerge, partly or entirely displacing today's jobs, right? And that's the World Economic Forum. So as we think about the globe and not just the United States, that was their Future of Jobs report. And they went on to say that the skill sets required in both the old and the new occupations will change in most industries, and it will transform how and where people work. Okay, so please understand, K through 12, we are giving you employability skills, critical thinking skills, social and emotional learning skills. We are giving you a baseline, a foundation. What you choose to do after high school is where you're going to start to build those like professional skill sets. Some of you are doing that in high school if you're on certain pathways, if you're taking a lot of electives, computer science courses, project lead, the way you're definitely starting to build those professional skills now. Not everybody is, but understand that those will automatically need a refresher and a new skills built on top of that. The second paragraph talks about by 2025, which quite honestly is like in less than 1,000 days, right? There will be an increased demand for data analysts and science, software and application developers, e-commerce and social media specialists. But there will also be an increasing demand for new roles, AI and machine learning, big data specialists, process automation, robotic engineers, and blockchain specialists. So again, we can tell you within a few years which jobs will be hot, and a lot of those skills will transfer. Because if you were a data analyst or you're doing things with data, you can probably move into a big data specialist job fairly easily with a little bit of training. The one that I put in red right there, that third little paragraph, workers will need to have the appropriate skills to enable them to thrive in a workplace of the future, and the ability to continue to retrain throughout their lives. So that's what I think is probably going to be very compelling when we look at virtual reality, augmented reality, and how we will use that technology to reskill and retrain people better. I do not think you're going to have like a Zoom call. I don't think you're going to have online learning. I don't think you're going to sit in a classroom much as we think about like the far distant future of your career and what retraining and reskilling will look like. And then another thing to think about if you do choose to go on to more education after high school is, we as educators, this was an educator article, need to do a better job of teaching kids how to live at intersections, right? So not just a pathway, not a silo. And that's one of the things I think, like if you get into certain majors in college, like if you're an engineering major, they don't care if you take anything but a lot of science, a lot of math in your engineering classes. They don't really worry so much about you taking like an arts class or history or any foreign language, then don't worry. Like, you take the basic couple of English classes, a couple of humanities, whatever. They really want you to focus on math and science. That's not much of an intersection. So as we think about like how to put better majors and minors together, how to get you a time when you're living in like cross thinking areas and you're getting more diversity in what you're studying, that's going to be a real powerful tool. So as we look at some of the headlines, it talks about skills, not just degrees, when we're hiring workers, which is really important because I just told you like 24% of high school seniors that go on to college will finish in 4 years. There are not a lot of people in the state of Indiana walking around with a college degree, and that's kind of a national trend. Yet we see that a lot as like the first thing that they look for in the world for like employment in an entry-level position. And that's one of the things we talk a lot about at TechPoint and our Mission 41K is we're really making an effort to help the state understand like how we need to use skills-based hiring and not say that somebody needs to have 3 to 5 years of work experience and a degree and understand, certain platforms. And happily to report, like, we're really truly walking the talk. We've got huge big companies in this state like Eli Lilly and One America who have already started to do this, but our own state government has started this in their tech offices, and it has been amazing. And that is like putting an emphasis on hiring people for their skills first. So let's talk about why that's important. So in the labor force in Indiana, we have 3.3 million people. Again, only by saying you need a bachelor's degree for an entry-level job, let's say a software developer, if you say that first like requirement on your job description is a college degree, you have eliminated 75% of Hoosiers. 75% of people that live in the state of Indiana cannot apply for that job because they do not have a bachelor's degree. And you eliminate diversity by about 30%. So that's why we keep getting people working in tech that look like everybody else that work in tech, right? We need to figure out how to get diversity. When you start to just say something as simple as like a credential, like a college degree over skills, you're whittling this down to, if you see that at the bottom of the slide, only 1.2% of people living in the state of Indiana currently in the workforce are eligible for your job. And then they're running around with their hair on fire telling us we have a tech talent crisis. Of course we do. And we need to look at where that's coming from. And it's coming from the fact that we are asking people for college degrees and certain credentials when they're not necessarily needed for some of these entry-level roles. And that is one thing we are working to change. And we're thinking about things like skills that are transferable. So how do you take somebody who used to do those French fries or works in a distribution center, moving freight around, or maybe drives a truck? How do you take those people and say they are skilled enough or have the transferable skills from those previous jobs or previous experiences to work in technology? Well, I will tell you that the Department of Labor says, and I put this really big at the bottom of this slide, people in the United States today will have over 12 jobs during their working years in this country. So every single time you have a job, some of you may have one now. If you babysit, if you do landscaping, if you were a lifeguard at the pool, if you work in fast food, if you deliver pizzas, if you do tutoring, right? If you do any of those things, you're developing transferable skills. And those transferable skills are anything that you gain through work or through study that are valuable for a job. Communication, teamwork, time management, anything that you're doing with technology, from using Microsoft Office all the way up to knowing Python or Java, right? Being able to code, any of those things, those are all incredibly valuable. So I had a couple of things there for you to take a look at. But in the interest of time, I just want to talk about where can you get skills. Skills can be developed in a variety of places through education, high schools, different pathways, your coursework, extracurricular activities, internships, even your part-time jobs. While technical skills are genuinely best learned through like doing things, applied sciences, applying them, employability skills can be developed in all of your classes, all of your core academics. You can get employability skills in your English class, your history class, your math class, your science class. You can get them everywhere. Hard to read, but here's a list of the top skills for the computer science industry and where you can get them. Notice critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, adaptability, planning and organizing. All of those things at the top of that are not even a technical skill yet. So thinking about where those come from, I would really urge you to start a skills inventory for yourself. You can use a spreadsheet. Just start to think about skills. You can get them off of job descriptions in different places, but thinking about where you can get those, that I think will be super important to you. All right, I know, I think I was done at 10:10 and it's 10:10. So in the interest of time, I wanted to stop and double through these questions in the Q&A. If you want teachers for computer and software, what college do you go to and when? I think you're asking, Peter, if you want to be a teacher for computer and software. I will tell you that I think sometimes getting a certification and getting some teaching experience. So even like teaching locally in your community, but thinking about like, where are people getting educated for those things? It might be at a boot camp. It might be online. It might be, at a high school. You can do a lot of different things when it comes to teaching for computer science and computer software. Some people work for the company that wrote the software. You can go to work for Adobe, or you can go to work for Microsoft. Let's see. Joy says, I disagree on what you said on how people don't want to work. I believe people do. I do. I 100% agree people want to work. That's why I argued with the man at the birthday party. I'm a fun party trick, because when he said that, I was like, that is not true at all. We have way too many jobs, and they're jobs that require credentials that people don't have, that you don't need a college degree for a lot of entry-level jobs. And that's still what companies are putting. So I 110% agree. People do want to work, and people are working. We have the lowest unemployment we've had in 40 years. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. So I'm sorry if you misunderstood that, but I'm right there with you. Anything else that I can talk about quickly? I know we're 1 minute over, so I want to just appreciate you guys for coming. I hope that was helpful, and start a skills inventory. Start keeping track of the skills you already have so you can start looking for great jobs.